we're not discussing for the sake of discussing. I'm not here just for the sake of talking to you.
Sure.
You're a human being. I believe there's intrinsic value in human beings.
Yeah.
Because I have my worldview is such that I believe human beings are created equal because I have a basis to say that with.
Yeah.
I believe that there is a way to live in this world which will have consequences for you now and in the hereafter. And I want the best for you in that.
Thank you.
Okay? And that's why we're having this discussion. So so it's not about winning or anything. It's not about sharing who's more intellectual. I don't really care about any of that stuff. I'm trying to be as just straightforward with you as I can because I want you to understand where I think I'm coming from because I think it's good for you, or where I'm coming from because I think it's good for you. Now, the disagreement we encourage, we happy to hear them and we'll go through them. But the purpose of the discussion is we want the best for you.
You're a lovely guy.
But you think I'm talking too much?
No. But I think you're trying to preempt where the conversation is going.
Just
Go on. Okay, then I'll shut up.
No. I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'm saying, look, we both have a strategy to discuss, right?
I'm willing to get very loose about what we might mean by the
Forget the
separation
details
process.
like Imran is saying. Imran is not talking about the details. Imran is talking about the very concept of there being the first cause of everything. Let's put it that way. The first cause
Okay, we're on that.
of everything.
We're on the cosmological argument.
No, not necessarily. The one, let's say the one from which everything else comes. Forget the details. The concept. On balance of probability, do you feel that proposition is more or less likely to be reality? That's the key.
The proposition of
There being something that has created everything.
consciousness.
Forget consciously, forget male or female, forget how powerful, forget how big, just the very concept of existence. Do you think that proposition, on balance of probability, is one that seems rational and logical to you? That's the key.
I honestly don't know how to answer that because it seemed that normally when that question's asked, a number of attributes are given to God.
Forget the attributes.
You knocked out all the
No.
attributes.
What
It's not my imagination.
I'll tell you,
When you knock out all the attributes, I've never heard anybody ask me that question.
Tony, but what we're trying to do here,
If you knock out all the attributes of God, then
no, we're not knocking anything out. What we're doing is we're going through a logical step-by-step approach.
Yeah.
Rather than jumping onto tier 10, we're starting at tier 1.
Yep.
And we're saying, okay, tier 1 is this concept
Yeah.
of the Almighty.
Yeah.
It exists.
Why is that tier 1? Why isn't tier 1 I am?
Well, because
it is I am.
No.
Thank you.
But
That's my point.
But
Tony, the
that's
point.
not where you would
the
start
point.
with
The point
this
is no, but Imran. Sorry. The point is whether you are or you are not there doesn't affect the reality of whether God exists or doesn't exist. I am is rubbish. It doesn't mean anything.
But
You not existing, or even if you are an illusion, it still doesn't change the reality of whether God exists or doesn't exist. So
But what
the
he's
point,
saying,
I understand what
I'm
he's
trying to
saying.
bridge this gap. So the only way an individual can arrive at a conclusion about something is from their own perceptual basis.
Yeah.
So it's got to start with the fact that he
Thank
exists. You're here now.
I'm extending out phenomenologically, as I said, like Husserl, Heidegger Wood. I think a lot of these philosophers, and I'm going, look,
But Tony,
you've
but
decided
Tony,
to start the question, is there a God?
but Tony,
I've decided to start with the question, I know I am, now where am I? And hopefully I can walk from there to there.
But Tony,
Yeah?
would you
That's the same-
accept?
that's the
Would
same
you
approach we
accept that there is a possibility of one of these realities?
Yeah, go.
Either God exists or
Yeah.
he doesn't exist.
Perfect, love it.
Ravi? Yeah.
Whatever God is, we haven't defined
Your
God, yeah?
your conceptual understanding of that notion, regardless of whatever conclusion you arrive at,
Yeah,
is irrelevant to that reality.
agreed.
Okay? So even if you believe that you don't exist,
Yeah,
that reality of either God exists or doesn't exist still applies.
yeah, that's ontological fact.
Right. So now the point that we're asking you, Tony, is on balance of probability,
Yeah,
looking at the universe,
Yeah.
whether you call it the concept from contingency
yeah,
or dependency,
Yeah.
whatever deductive or inductive method you wish to use,
Sorry, am I being very obtuse? Maybe I'm just...
No,
Because
no.
you're giving me a lot of time.
I'm saying using a deductive methodology.
Okay, I'll come in blunt. The answer is I think the chance... You know that I want you to define your terms more and go deeper, but
No,
I'll
what-
just
no,
dive,
Tony,
I'll just dive
Tony,
in.
you know-
I'll just dive in.
Tony, you know-
the answer is
you-
I think it's very low.
Tony, you know what it is with you?
Okay, I think
It's very
so
low
that we
that
don't
God exists.
eternally
That's fine.
debate what we mean by God for a minute. Instead, we'll do it after the event.
Okay.
I'll dive straight in by going, I think the chance that the kind of God you're envisaging exists.
No,
literally-
not the kind of God you're envisaging.
So I would say,
Okay, a
start
totally
from your-
undefined God.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
the probability...
Don't do that to
The
yourself.
creator
I know
of
that's
everything.
fine.
Do you understand why I'm
Let me
getting
try,
lost?
Let me try and lay it out. Let me try and lay it out a little bit. From your... Start with the I am. Start
Yeah.
where you are.
Thank you very much.
Start there, because that's where you want to start.
Yeah.
Fine.
He's giving you that you exist now.
Thank you.
I didn't want to give you that.
You're in your world.
Thank you very much.
You
I
find
didn't want to
yourself
even
in
give
this
you that,
world.
Tony.
But it's so... I'll do both. Sorry, go on.
You find yourself in the world.
Yeah.
Try and bring about some sort of understanding of
Yeah.
why you're here. The existential questions.
Yes.
Why am I here? Do I have any function? Do I have any
Yeah.
purpose? All these things.
Yes.
So start with the question of why you're here.
Exactly. I will...
So now you have to,
I think-
you
no,
have
I-
to use your tools that you've your hierarchy.
Okay, I'm using my hierarchy, and now we're moving into methodology.
We're going to go into a rabbit hole now, aren't we,
No,
Tony?
no,
I'm just joking. I'm just
trying to lay down
I'm
the
just joking.
foundations.
I'm just joking.
Now we've got to work out, I think we've got to work out what's the most important question. Seriously. What's the first question that I have to give? And I know I'm here, and I'm presented with a drama called life, and I have to make choices, it seems.
Forget the drama called life.
Why? That's what that's what jihad and religion and everything is about. It's about
Forget-
dealing with the drama
So
of
you're
life.
again, you're getting into the weeds.
What?
I want you to stand out.
You're
and look
getting into
and
the weeds, you say.
and make
Not weed, Tony.
make
I know.
clear.
I'm just
clear
joking.
things. So what I'd like you to do is, like, you are on a plane on this earth. There's no one else here, just you.
Uh-huh.
There's no drama of life.
That I think...
I want you to explain. I'm giving you a hypothetical because I'm trying to take out the things that I think are irrelevant. Now you may think that they're irrelevant. We can come to that a bit later. But I want you to use your hierarchy and the fact that you're here, you exist,
Yeah.
the world exists. We agree with these things, do we?
Do you agree that you exist?
Oh, yeah,
The world
yeah.
exists.
We've
the universe
established, yeah,
exists?
we've established.
So now
that's
explain,
confirmed. You
use
accept
your
that.
hierarchy to explain that fact.
How did that come into existence?
Okay, I would have gone, that's not the most important question. The most important question is how should I live? But we'll go to your one. Let's assume the most important question is what? Phrase your question?
How does the reality of you existing
Mhm.
and the universe existing, which you've accepted, how does it come into existence?
I'm
Where
not
does it
sure
come
the
from?
universe exists, but I'm going to hypothesize
No,
that
you
there's a
just
wrong.
did, Tony. Now you're back.
No, I said I'm certain I exist.
No, I said, and the world exists. You said yes, and I said, and the universe
Okay,
exists.
yeah, but I'm not
and you said
100%.
yes.
I think it's highly, highly probable I'm not dreaming, okay?
So you're highly probable.
It's highly likely there's a world. It's highly likely it has
It's
rules.
It's
It's highly
negligible
likely...
that you're not that you're dreaming.
Huh?
It's negligible that you're
It's a
dreaming.
negligible
Okay,
chance I'm
so we
dreaming.
can put that
it's
away,
all
right?
Yeah, well, I don't want to forget it exists, but I'll put it
but
to
it's
the
so
side.
small
yeah.
that it's
Yeah,
negligible.
yeah.
Okay. So you exist.
Yeah.
The world exists.
Mhm.
You said the most important question is why you're here. But why is?
No, I said the most important question, I think every
How you
human
should
being, how should I live? I think that's a question every human being
that's
has
a function-
always
that's
had to ask
sure.
themselves, and religion addresses. Religion
I
addresses
agree.
precisely
I
the
agree.
primary
So
question.
The how to live is a function of purpose.
Let them finish.
Yeah.
And purpose is something that you need to establish when you know what you're here for, why you were made.
I
If you were
already
made-
know certain things. I know that I have needs, I have wants, I know what the stakes are in terms of pleasure and pain, without me knowing any more details about my environment. That is what I mean by the drama which is unavoidable, and I would say that religion understands that's the drama and addresses that question in that context, which is why it's so powerful, yes? Then you've got to say, when I'm trying to work out how to live, I have to accurately answer the question, where am I?
No,
And in the process of asking the
it's not the way
question,
around.
where am I, then I have to ask, well, is there a creator and so
So
on.
this is the other way
But you
around.
approach it in that order.
So we're coming at this completely different.
I know,
way.
but it's good to know.
So the problem is this. So from my perspective,
Mhm.
the first thing if you find yourself on a train that's heading in, you wake up one day, you're on a train. The train
Yeah.
is heading in a certain direction.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit, and you don't know how you've arrived here or anything. The first thing that's going to be on your mind is not going to be, am I hungry? Do I need to get some food? How am I going to live my life on this train? Your first question is, why am I on this train?
that will be the first question for about the first few hours. Yes.
Absolutely. So these
But
first
the minute
few
we
hours,
move beyond the immediate short
Once you-
term
absolutely.
into a long-term structured strategy for living, I will inevitably,
No,
because of
but
my
Tony-
nature,
but
have
Tony,
to
you
address
if you
the
decide,
point
if you
that he's
decide to live
making.
on the train,
Yeah.
that's fine. But first, I want you to establish the first thing that would go through. That you agree the first few hours would be, why am I here? What am I doing on this train?
But if
Now apply that to you're this person who's standing in this field
world.
on the earth on your own. You're not hungry. You don't have any immediate needs to meet. The first question you're going to ask yourself is,
yeah. If my
what am I doing?
immediate needs and my drama, my
Yes.
immediate dramas are
That's why
taken
we
care
put drama
of,
around
then the next piece of information I want to slot in is, what are the rules? How does this work? Is there a creator?
before
And all
that
of that
question.
stuff. Yeah?
Before that question.
Huh?
Before that question, so that the how to live your life is a question that comes after is the function of what you're here for. So, for example, if you have a car, and I want you to imagine in your mind, you have no idea what a car is. You've never seen doors, you've never seen wheels, you've never seen windows, and there's a car.
Yeah.
When you approach this car, what are you going to do with it?
Approach it as
You're approaching this
an investigative anomaly
as
to
someone,
try and work
as
out what
someone
I'm
who's
looking
never
at.
seen wheels,
Yeah.
windows, doors.
I'm going to take my understanding of the universe thus far to date, look at my hierarchy, epistemic hierarchy, and start doing empirical investigations with the car to learn more about its
What's
nature.
the first thing you do? So make it personal. I'm going to walk to this car or this thing. that
I'll
I'm
look at
seeing.
it, I'll probably start by touching, I'll test it with all my senses.
Okay, and then what?
Having tested it, I'll see if I can get inside
Why
it.
would you want to get inside it?
Because I assume that there's elements of it I can't see that doesn't have access to my senses. It looks like it has an interior which might be accessible. Also, has this car got tinted windows or is it see-through?
So just think how you're going to do it.
You gave me a car,
No,
I'm looking at the car.
Sure. So what are you seeing?
Okay.
So it looks like there's-
Anything that's hidden from
so
me
what- so how
becomes
would you-
interesting.
okay.
I want maximum
So
sensory.
how are you going to get into it?
How am I going to get into it?
Yeah. It looks
Well-
like there's something. It looks like there's a space in it when you go near the window.
Well, I might start by going, excuse me, can I come in? I might try a few, because I don't know it's
might
not
talk to
intelligent. I might try talking to it, look around, see if there's anyone who might know about a car. If it
So
doesn't,
now the question comes.
then I might start actually trying to physically break into it.
Okay.
Maybe
Where
break
would you-
a window.
Where would you hit?
Well, start with what looks like the weak point that would do minimum damage.
Which is-
Start by working out, should I damage this thing? Yeah? I've got to consider, like, if I'm damaging something that belongs to somebody else. I've got to consider a whole lot of moral consequences
So
suddenly in
what-
the way I investigate this
The
car.
question then comes is, are you using that car
Yeah.
correctly?
If my motive is to try and learn more about it, to augment my
No, that's not the
understanding of
question.
reality,
That's
then
not the
yes, I'm
question.
using it well.
Tony, I'm asking
Because
you.
I'm doing it according to my Fitrah.
So Tony, no, you're not. We're not talking about
Really?
Fitrah. Your Fitrah comes later. When I'm talking to you, are you using that car correctly?
I stand by the answer I just gave. Sorry.
Sure. So I would
I'm
say
investigating it
Sure.
in good faith.
Absolutely. But you're not using the car correctly. You would agree with that, right? With your modern understanding now, you know that you're not using that car correctly.
Oh, sorry. What? Sorry. You mean I'm?
So
You
using-
mean, am I driving it? Am I
No, no, are
using
you-
it as it's meant to be?
Absolutely, that's the
Sorry,
question.
I thought you meant, is my investigative technique appropriate? My investigative technique is appropriate. I'm a million miles away from knowing how to drive a car.
Absolutely. So this is why I'm saying to you that how you live
Yeah.
is a function of purpose. If you want to know the correct way to live in the world,
Yeah.
you can use your hierarchy and your empirical sort of investigations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna, I'm gonna kick this car and try and find it. You're not using yourself, I would say, as you're meant to be used, because you're missing the function of your purpose here, and that purpose is the thing that is important. Then comes, how do I live? Because if you're the way to use the car is to open the door and get in and drive it. Now, if only way you will know that is if you know the purpose. Now, do you understand?
You think I'm putting the cart before the horse. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. There may be a way of balancing this out. It may be that in any given system, where you start from in the system to explore it, it means the system will automatically look different, yeah? If you get on the tube system at one end of the Piccadilly line and I get on the system at the other, our journeys will look very different, even though we're exploring the same thing. Both of our views are valid, but we pick different starting places. I've picked a phenomenological starting point, I've checked out other ones, but on the balance of things for self-consistency, the phenomenological one seems like
But
actually a
there's
very
a
solid ground.
problem, Tony.
You're starting with a hypothetical thing and then coming down to the
not at all.
phenomenological.
Not at all. Not at all. So I'll give you the problem. The problem here is whether the way you investigate things isn't the problem. Actually, the problem is the direction in which you're investigating. You're giving yourself a purpose, just like you're investigating this car and you're coming up with ideas of what it's for,
Yeah.
that are incorrect because you don't know the actual purpose of that thing. If you knew, and with all humbleness, if you knew the function, the purpose of the human being,
Yeah.
your approach to what should I do as a human being on the earth would be a completely different investigation method and also a conclusion than someone who's coming at it I'll investigate and make it up as I go along. Not that that's what you're doing, but I'll investigate it and see where I get to.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. That's got to be true.
Sure, I agree.
But that assertion predicates on me already deciding what those facts are,
Okay, so
and
you
I
don't
have
dis-
to.
so
I
you
have to
don't
make
decide.
decisions.
Just as the car does not decide what its purpose is, you don't decide what your purpose is.
No, but the reality is the nomina and the phenomena and the methodology and the hermeneutics. So the car is nominally real. I am nominally real. I interpret the car as a phenomena. I use hermeneutics to do it, and if I do it in best accordance with my Fitrah, I'm most likely to understand the nature of the car. That is what seeing with optimization in accordance with your Fitrah is.
So this is the problem. There's a problem here, Tony. You're bringing Fitrah in, but you've been neglecting the one who gave you the Fitrah.
You're presuming those things,
No.
and they may be true, but you've introduced them as starting presumptions. But that assumption that you believe in a creator, that axiom that you're applying predicates on my axiom, I am.
No,
It's just a
But
fact.
Tony,
It's just a
you're
fact.
admitting that the
Let me walk you
Fitrah,
through
you're admitting that the Fitrah exists.
I'm hopeful the Fitrah is a cogent
But you
notion.
keep referring to it.
Yeah, because I'm hopeful it's a cogent
That's
notion.
fine. But if you do that, Imran is basically asking you
Yeah.
that, you see, it would be like me, for example, saying the cake exists,
Uh-huh.
but the one who made the cake, I'm not concerned with that. The one who put the cake, I'm not concerned with
because
that.
I don't.
So
if I'm being diligent,
what I'm saying is that you believe that you are, on balance of probability,
Yeah.
you accept that the Fitrah is a guide.
I mean, Fitrah in a wider sense, than
Right.
just Islam.
But
yeah.
what Imran is asking you is, why not think about where the Fitrah came from?
I am.
So before
It's just in the sequence of events, asking that question happens after I've done the previous assertions of things like I am.
What comes first, the Fitrah or the one that created the Fitrah?
What comes first in terms of my methodology
So,
is...
do you understand? You're approaching it from opposite angles.
Yeah.
So if you have to,
It's interesting.
Tony has to give himself the fact that he exists.
Right.
Yeah,
We agree. So let's see. You can have that fact.
so I'm with Descartes,
So the
yeah?
question, you are Descartes.
I'm
So
coming
the
from a
question-
Descartes
The question
position.
then is, you're now in a, you believe this world is real. You're real. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gambling very heavily on
Okay.
this,
So,
yeah.
but we agree that the opposite of that is negligible.
It's very small, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to put that
We're
to
gonna
one
put that
side.
aside.
Okay, because it's not.
So we're in a
as an
world
option.
which has
So
rules.
the world is real. You exist. Now the question is, like the person who wakes up on the train. The first question is, what am I doing here? Where am I going?
Yeah.
That's the question you need to ask yourself. And
No,
like,
the first
why-
question is, how should I live? Which
No,
is a
no,
moral
it's not.
question. Okay, I think the first question is a moral question. You think the
can't
first
answer the
question
moral
is an
question.
epistemological question.
But Tony, doesn't
But I
ha-
think religion is more
but
about
Tony,
morality and
But we're not talking about
theology
religion.
but Tony,
than it is
how
about knowledge.
but Tony,
We're not
how
talking
you
religion.
live,
Yeah,
isn't that predicated on the reason of your existence?
absolutely, absolutely. I'm not denying that it is. I'm
So-
just saying
so-
that
so-
in the sequence of events.
So if it's predicated upon
yeah,
the reason of your existence,
Mm-hmm.
that comes first before how I should live.
it comes first in terms.
So another way of
Okay,
putting it is, if you have
within an epistemological framework, yes. Within a methodological framework, no.
I would say in both.
Okay, methodologically, I'm going to spend my whole life trying to refine the answer to the question, who is God, who is the creator, where am I, and these questions, yeah?
Why?
Can we agree on that?
Why?
Because it's a lifelong journey.
No, but Tony,
Why-
wouldn't
who
you
told you
first do
Why
what
wouldn't
Imran
it be?
said?
Who told you this a lot?
Okay, my experience is that I don't in 1 millisecond go from asking a question to instantly understanding all of the ramifications of
I
the
agree with
answer.
you. I
Okay,
agree.
thank you.
So it's
Therefore,
not-
it is
it's
a
not
journey.
But it's not a lifelong journey.
Okay, it's over an extended period
Okay,
of
so
time,
the
yes?
first question, so you've got your life to investigate certain things.
Right.
purpose is a function. How to live is a function of purpose. Just as knowing how to use a car comes from your knowledge of the purpose of the car, knowing how to live your life comes as a function of knowing what your purpose is.
Agreed.
Okay.
Understanding
Okay,
my purpose in life will inform my ability to answer
That's
the
what
question.
that's what we're saying.
However, and I'm agreeing
So then the
with
next step comes.
I'm totally agreeing with you.
We agree.
Okay, hang on. I do agree on that. However, I'm pointing out that in parallel to that, on the methodological track, I will always be refining an answer to the question, what is God, where am I, yeah? And that will be accurately informing my answer to the question, how do I live? But while I'm doing that, I always have to, second by second, answer the question, how do I live? In any given second,
Of course, but now
I make hundreds
But
of
Tony,
choices.
but now you agree.
Yeah, and I need a guide for that.
So this would be-
So that's why it's primary.
That's, no,
Answering
but that's
that
fine.
question
But
is
Tony,
primary.
but you agree that your purpose of existence is fundamentally the most important thing before you start to evaluate how you should live your life.
No, I don't agree with
I'll
that.
tell you why. I'll tell you why it's logical, Tony. I'll tell you why it's logical. Because if your purpose of life was to eat grass,
Yeah.
get old and die, then any other conclusion that you came to that contradicted that would be wrong. Because you've gone against the very fundamental purpose of your existence. Do you agree?
If my function in life was to
If
eat
the
grass,
purpose of your life
purpose of my life,
was to simply to eat grass,
Yeah.
grow old and die, and you came up with another conclusion,
yeah,
then you would have to agree that that conclusion was wrong, and you did not fulfill the purpose of your existence.
You're doing it
yeah,
wrong.
because you've given an example where I die if I get it wrong.
No.
No.
Just you live your life doing
You live your
something
life
in a way that isn't
you live your
actually-
life opposite to the reasons of what your existence was created for,
Yeah.
or that you were created for. Is a clumsy way of putting it. If you contradict the very purpose of your existence,
So with all the best intentions,
all
you're
the
doing
best
it wrong.
intentions, you're doing it wrong.
It's really interesting that because I love that we're talking this deep. I think some people it might seem like I'm just being horribly obtuse. I apologise.
You're giving your view, and that's fine.
I think we essentially agree. I'm just trying to be really meticulous about the fact that
Tony,
How you doing?
Hi, dude. How are you?
Did you play Zohar today?
Oh, I've just had COVID. So did I what? Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. COVID, no problem.
Apologies, I went straight for
Thanks
hang.
to Putin, we don't have COVID in it. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Okay.
so Tony, what I'm saying is that let's at
I
least
think
try
we
to.
basically agree.
Let's-
Knowing whether there's a God or not will fundamentally affect my answer to the question, how should I live? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, that's fine. But Imran's question.
agree on
Yeah, of course. But Imran's.
I'm just looking at the genesis of how I get there and
Tony,
realising that...
let's underline as we go
Yeah.
the purpose of your existence, which is what Imran was saying, is fundamental before how I should lead my life.
No, sorry, just pragmatically
So-
it's not.
so-
And I'm not even a
Okay.
pragmatist.
Now, the reason why I believe that that would be the case is because one is reliant on the other,
Yeah.
but you can't switch it the other way around. So, for example, if the very definition or the purpose of your existence is A,
Yeah.
but you choose to do B, C, D,
You've
E,
made a
or
mistake.
F, you've gone wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? If you got the purpose of your existence, which was A,
Yeah.
but you made some mistakes along the way,
Yeah.
you still fundamentally observe the purpose of your existence.
Sure.
So one can be switched, the other can't be. And that's why one is predicated upon the other. It doesn't work the other way around.
Intellectually, not methodologically.
Well, I would say methodologically as well.
But in terms of the genesis, we're really micromanaging this
We are.
discussion. You
It's
know that.
simple.
I think you were very astute in saying, in understanding twice now, that we're starting in different locations, okay? And I think the only reason we're disagreeing, all of the things we're discussing are very valuable. Clearly knowing if there's a God and your place in the universe is profoundly important. I'm not
place in the
disputing that. How can I express it in a way?
your
Your relation, your
purpose for
purpose.
existence.
Understanding your purpose and God is profoundly important. We do agree. And
I
if it's
said-
sounding to people, anyone watching this, like we disagree on that,
we
it's
don't-
not the
No,
case.
no, when that's
we
profound-
totally
when
agree.
we say
We're
profoundly,
micromanaging
I
exactly how
understand.
the thing.
But when we say profoundly, I would say rationally, that would be the first fundamental, important fact to establish. Because,
Why are you there and where are you going?
Yes, I agree. I agree.
so we agree on that then. So let's underline that.
So let's.
The
Come
mo-
on,
the
let's
most-
move-
hang on.
let's
It's
have
the most
a,
important.
let's have a glass of water.
Okay,
Let's move
okay,
on,
hang
Tony.
hang on. Sorry,
Whoa.
it's the most important intellectual question.
Okay.
I'm just saying you're always confronted with the moral question second by second, and even in the absence of intellectual hardware to help you, you still have to make moral decisions. Every decision that one makes is essentially moral. It is consequential to yourself.
You know what I think, Tony? I'll tell you what I think. You're a lovely guy.
But you think I'm talking too much?
No. But I think you're trying to preempt where the conversation is going.
Oh, go on. Okay, then I'll shut up.
No. I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'm saying, look, we both have a strategy to discuss, right? Obviously, we have our biases and we have our ways of discussing. And the whole point of having this discussion is that obviously you want to perhaps rationally move the other person into a step-by-step logical reasoning.
It's even more profound than that.
No,
right?
I actually...
Go on.
You know the main thing
You'll probably say it better than me.
No, it's not.
I want to find as much common ground as is humanly possible. And if I'm being over-intellectual, a bit anal and a pain, I'll back down a bit because I like that we're talking at this level. You're giving me this amount of time.
Imran's got a point. I find it's more fundamental.
We're not discussing for the sake of discussing. I'm not here just for the sake of talking to you.
Sure.
You're a human being. I believe there's intrinsic value in human beings.
Yeah.
Because I have my worldview is such that I believe human beings are created equal because I have a basis to say that with.
Yeah.
I believe that there is a way to live in this world which will have consequences for you now and in the hereafter. And I want the best for you in that.
Thank you.
Okay? And that's why we're having this discussion. So so it's not about winning or anything. It's not about sharing who's more intellectual. I don't really care about any of that stuff. I'm trying to be as just straightforward with you as I can because I want you to understand where I think I'm coming from because I think it's good for you, or where we're coming from because I think it's good for you. Now, the disagreement we encourage, we happy to hear them and we'll go through them. But the purpose of the discussion is we want the best for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just so know you know where we're coming from.
I feel that
Sure.
I want the same for you.
Sure, great. So that now that we've sort of we established we're not just discussing for the sake of discussing.
No.
You are someone who knows you exist. The world exists.
Uh-huh.
You find yourself in the world. You're just like that person on the train who wakes up, doesn't know how he's got there.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here and where am I going? Are the two most important questions you would want to ask yourself. I agree with you. The fact that in the moment-to-moment survival, things like eating and drinking and shelter, and yes, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs is there. But I want you to go to the top of that pyramid at the moment and think about the fact that what are you doing here? Why are you here?
Agreed.
So the way to do that is now try to explain. Where are you? How did this get here? How did you get here?
Okay,
Use your epistemic hierarchy that you've made.
Which is why, with respect, I think about half an hour ago, having maybe wasted quite a lot of your time, but I didn't mean to. I did say we seem to be heading towards the cosmological argument. We're heading into that kind of terrain, and you said no. And I thought that you meant, we're going somewhere else. But it sounds like we are kind of heading into those questions about the prime mover, the first cause, and that, which is what I take to be the cosmological argument.
That's the natural progression to a discussion.
I'm happy to go to that.
And the reason why it's a natural progression is that if I woke up on a train and I'm saying, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. Where am I going? Then fundamentally, logically, there would be a search for those answers. And logically, the search for those answers, obviously from a human point of view and being in this universe, would be, why am I here?
Yeah, what's going on?
Where did I come from? And how did this all get here?
Agree.
Okay.
Totally.
So then, when we apply that deductive analysis, that you say that the world exists, you exist, the universe exists, how could it have possibly got here?
Agreed.
Okay. And of course, I think that there are very strong arguments from dependency, to some extent the cosmological argument and what have you, right? I think they're very, very strong arguments. And the reason why they're strong is that other arguments that are applied to explain the existence of the universe tend to be contradictory, i.e. they fall apart because they have contradictory terms that cannot be accepted. So, for example, if I were
coming from nothing?
something coming from nothing, an absence of anything.
Okay, you do want to do the cosmological argument.
No, but
Not the cosmological.
that's not the cosmological.
Yeah.
That's more of an argument from.
Fundamentally, you have to have some way of coming to an idea of how we.
You want to do physics. You want to do physics.
It's not physics actually, because nothing is an absence of everything. So physics can't answer that question, because physics relies upon something coming from something.
We'd have to I'm just trying to us to agree on the arena of conversation. Can I make a suggestion? Number one, when you edit this, maybe cut out.
we don't edit the
okay.
last hour.
Maybe cut out just for your viewers' sake, okay? Because it's probably going to look like the silly atheist didn't want to discuss the topic.
No,
okay?
not at all.
The last half
You're not
hour
an atheist.
was not exactly. You might.
You're not an atheist. You said that you're not sure.
It doesn't matter, we don't need to digress to that as well, okay? Now, I'm happy to discuss, you mean where did it all come from and the cosmos and the big cosmological questions, yes? If you want to discuss that, I'm more than happy to head into that.
Isn't that what we were discussing?
No, I was discussing teleology, morality, and metaphysics, and phenomenology, and epistemological hierarchies. In other words, I was trying to expect the tools that we would use to ask the question.
But Tony,
yes.
So I want you to
I think if you don't identify the tools clearly, then you're going to do a bad job.
But Tony, don't you appreciate that without the existence of a creator,
Yeah.
all of those things that you have just said, all of those things that you've said
Yeah.
are simply anecdotal or they're subjective.
Hang on. You just made one hell of a
If
joke.
God does not exist,
Yeah.
if there is not an absolute truth of anything, then you or me or he coming up with a conclusion on how I should live could be mutually exclusive, could be contradictory, and could be as correct to him as they are to you as they are to me. So it doesn't lead to certainty or clarity or any definitive or definite. All it leads to is my social consensus says that this is good, or this is bad, or this is fair, or this is not fair, therefore I will go with that. Or my nurture and my nature will dictate to me all of these things, which, by the way, would be very different if you were born 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Okay? So ultimately, what I'm trying to explain to you is that all of those things about how I should live, what I should do, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, they are incumbent upon and are completely anchored upon the existence of a almighty being that has perfect knowledge and can attribute the perfect value for all of those actions, i.e. whether they're good or whether they're bad, how good and how bad. Because without that measure, without that yardstick, your measuring tool and my measuring tool might be very, very different. So that's why we're fundamentally talking about, you're on the train, why am I here, where am I going?
Do you know how much you just said? In terms of the ramifications and the terrain you opened up? You opened up ethics again. I was on ethics. You moved on to sort of physics stroke metaphysics.
There are no ethics without God.
And now you move. Okay, that's an assertion. I understand the assertion. I understand it looks that way, and you may be right, but it's not a done deal. People have spent, their lives considering the possibility of whether objective morality is possible without the existence of intelligent design externally.
They've always struggled. You know why they've struggled, Tony? Because ultimately there is no one argument that I've heard, and I've heard many arguments, where somebody can say this is the right way and every other way is the wrong way, and these are the reasons why.
Right.
Because all of those reasons are in themselves subjective and change over time.
But this is the really interesting topic. This is where the heart of the conversation lies.
Have I drifted onto areas where you didn't want to go? Sorry.
No, you're right. You're
I
identifying the absolute heart of where the whole moral conundrum is. It's less and less about objective reality and physics and more about morality and ethics and metaphysics. And you've asked exactly whether things are just subjective or objective, and absolute moral values and relative moral values, absolute truth and relative
That's
truth.
why it's very important, Tony, to answer that fundamental questions.
Yeah. That's what I just did with my epistemic hierarchy.
Why am I here? Where am I going? And Tony, who is best to answer that question for you, or those questions for you?
Unfortunately, I inevitably will have to answer them for myself because that's how I'm built. I have no choice.
And is that subjective?
No, that's an ontological fact.
But it's subjective.
Sorry, what do you mean?
His sense of morality and his sense of guiding himself, I'm saying, is that subjective?
It comes back to the...
No, not if you believe in Fitrah. That's the whole point. And I do accept the concept of Fitrah.
Why do you believe in Fitrah?
Well, actually, why wouldn't I believe in Fitrah?
But we're saying fitrah comes from Allah.
Hang on a minute. Okay, I'm using Fitrah for the minute, then with a small f. Okay? Hang on.
It sounds a bit like the small G.
Okay, let me use a different term then, okay? Let's say can I call it a compass? Yeah? So now we've got two terms. We've got a compass within your nature,
Where did the
and you've
compass
got a
come
thing
from?
called Fitrah. I know I know. Just a little.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I have things I'm showing you. We can always ask where did they come from, and I do want to answer.
I'm just joking
okay?
with you.
Okay, let's just assume we live in a world for a minute where people have compasses
Okay.
and people have Fitrah, and Fitrahs are a subset of compasses.
Okay.
They're particular kinds. I'm very hopeful that both exist, compasses and Fitrah. I think there are atheists out there and postmodernists who would argue that we don't come with a compass. I think they're wrong. And you and I, and every other religion, and strangely enough Sam Harris, and Darwinian evolutionists, I think if you look at their thinking, all believe that human beings land with an a priori compass. Okay? That's the interesting thing. Only the postmodernists disagree with this.
But there's an issue there, Tony.
What?
The issue is that it's not whether or not you believe it, it's your foundations for believing. So you can believe that we have this compass within us that allows us to sort of navigate morally. That's fine. The question isn't about that.
Why not? I'm trying to big up your position.
Yeah, absolutely, because it comports with our position. Because we believe in the fitrah.
I know you do, but I'm validating. I'm saying the Fitrah becomes more likely if you accept the idea that we all have a compass. Yes?
No, we don't disagree with that. The question isn't that. The question is, why do you believe that you have it?
Why do I believe
Why
it?
do you believe it?
Because I think the evidence suggests that I land with that I'm not a blank slate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The essential debate is between the primary dichotomy here to be had at this discussion is between blank slate theorists and a priori theorists.
So
yeah?
there's no tabula rasa. We are not.
Yeah, we're
blank
not
slate.
tabula rasa. Yeah? If we're tabula rasa, there are certain consequences. If we're not tabula rasa, there are other consequences. All the world's religions and Darwinian evolution and most materialists, whether they know it or not, don't believe in a tabula rasa model, okay? So we're actually, even Sam Harris, and you're probably not a fan of Sam Harris, Sam Harris is profoundly into the idea, no, you're not a tabula rasa, so Steven Pinker, we arrive with an a priori nature. That a priori nature, consequentially, will naturally form and forge your fitrah, yeah? Without an a priori nature, you ain't got a fitrah.
So this is where we may be in different terms.
So just come over here.
Our
Over here,
a priori nature you're referring to,
Yeah.
we would say is the fitrah.
Okay.
It doesn't inform your fitrah, it is your fitrah.
Okay,
So
that could work.
For us, the fitrah is something that was specifically placed within the nature of the human being. So it's not something that is formed, it's something that is part of us. Now it is a part of us that can adjust and it can be affected by the society around us, but it's fundamentally a part. This is why young children, you've heard of the Cambridge study where they did on in Japan, I think it was, where they had.
I think you're blocking your own camera.
It doesn't matter.
They had.
There's another one there.
They looked at
there.
they did a study on pre-socialized children, and they found that a lot of them believed in agency within nature.
Yeah.
And this, for us, would point towards the fitrah, because children don't expect things to exist without some sort of agency behind it.
True.
Or actions to be taking place.
Unfortunately, I can put a counter argument to that, but I'm not sure you want to do that right now. Could we just agree that we're none of us are fans of blank slate? Yeah? I'm trying to see what common assertions we can make. That if we live in a blank slate environment, we probably live in a nihilistic universe. That's a profoundly unattractive possibility. For me, that still could be the case. For you, you've discounted that, I think, 100%. I can't discount it.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, to me, I find it a frightening and depressing possibility that I can't totally get rid of. And I've kind of incorporated that into my thinking as a driving force. I mean, you need...
And do you think that fitrah that you're talking about is a metaphysical concept of your being? Or a physical material concept of your existence?
I think it could be one or the other, or that could be a false dichotomy. I think when I'm approaching it, I'll start by going, do I think it exists? And then I'll try and work out why it exists.
Okay, that's fine, but you already said that it does exist.
Okay, so I'm asserting that we do have a compass, yeah?
Right, but I'm saying to you, do you think that's a metaphysical concept? Or it's a physical concept of simply neurons firing in a certain way?
I think the jury is out. I think there's about 4 different models.
Forget what the models are. What do you think?
I think I'm honestly playing about 4 ideas at once here. I think there's about 4 or 5 mainstream models, and now we're on the hard problem of consciousness, which is the great stuff, yeah? This is the great stuff. There are about 4 or 5 different models to how to conceptualize the relationship between neurology and consciousness and qualia, yeah? And I'm not in a position where, because as you say, it's about probabilities, I can't necessarily discount any of them, and it probably isn't productive to do so, so I'm going to keep them all on the board.
None of them work.
Okay? Huh?
None of them work.
Oh no, I think that all of them have got problems, and all of them present certain assets and certain disadvantages.
Because the problem is an in-principle problem. But I think where all of these discussions, morality, consciousness, etc., they're all secondary to the question of you and how you're going to determine how everything behaves. Why is there something wrong with nothing? And then what is your purpose? So then you know how you need to live your life to achieve the purpose.
But these are the questions I have to answer. I have to ask, what is my consciousness? Does it have rules? Is there absolute truth, or is truth relative? Is there absolute morality, or is morality relative? These are the key questions. Now, I can't help but notice that religions, including yours, have consistently informed precisely those profoundly important questions. And that gives me great hope that religions such as yours are a valuable asset to the species.
But do you believe that...
So I'm picking up your religion precisely because
that's
you
fine.
address these questions.
But Tony, do you believe that one of them can only be true?
One of what?
The 2 concepts. Either it comes from a higher being, or is simply man-made.
Well, from what you say, man-made. What?
Man-constructed.
What? Consciousness.
Everything, consciousness, morality.
I think consciousness is definitely not man-made.
Okay, so you believe that consciousness is not man-made. Where does it come from then?
Well, as I said, there's about 4 or 5 different models.
No, but they're physical models, aren't they?
No, not all of them.
Which one of those is a supernatural model?
Well, I call it the classical model, the first model, which is the one you'd subscribe to, which is literally an outside creator, ensoulment into the body. So that would be model
which one
number
seems more reasonable to you out of the 4 models? Because you've clearly studied them.
Sadly, at the moment, I think we're into a dualistic model, even though. Unfortunately, well, look, I'm a big fan of. Shit, now I've forgotten his name. That's terrible. No, although I am a fan of Sam Harris. Sorry, no, the inventor of virtual reality. Why have I suddenly forgotten his name? Jaron Lanier. I always give a couple of quotes by him. I'll give one quote by him now, okay? He says something I think is great. And if I've said that before, I'm sorry, boring it. He says, either you think you know everything, or you have to learn to organize your ignorance in an intelligent and honest fashion. And I think that's a very enlightened thing to say. Now, I am not under the impression I know everything. So I'm doing my best to organize my ignorance, and I think the word honesty is a moral virtue. Intelligence is a moral, but honesty is, so we need to be honest as well.
So sorry, out of the 4, which one did you say that you find more plausible?
I backtrack, sorry. So he says, he's into dualism. He goes, I think it's the dualistic model is the one to look at, even though he doesn't think ultimately it is a dualistic problem, but mechanistically dualistically now. So what we've got is classical model, top-down consciousness lands in the body. Option 2 seems to be neurology creates consciousness and qualia. I know you don't agree with it, I'm just saying it's on the table as a theory, yeah? This is one of the 2 dualistic models, yeah? So neurology creates... Now there's 2 ways of looking at that. You can have property dualism or material dualism. Material dualism would say neurology creates consciousness in the same way that maybe a car creates an exhaust. Property dualism would say no, consciousness is just a property of the car, like the colour red. It's not something external caused by it. So if you go into property dualism, you're veering towards panpsychism, which is another one of the models. But whether you go for any of those within the 2 dualistic models, the question is there a feedback loop? Is it that consciousness also affects neurology, or is it only that neurology affects consciousness? Because it seems incontrovertible that consciousness and neurology are entangled, yeah? It's very, very difficult not to see causal connections between the 2.
Like a car race rivalry or something.
Yeah, okay, so we clearly have an entanglement here. Now, I would far prefer to believe that the soul descends into and controls the neurology, and the neurology is being driven by the soul. I promise you I would prefer that. But because I also believe that being harsh and honest with myself is a virtue, I'm trying to look at what I take to be the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario seems to be that maybe consciousness requires neurology to create it, or as a sub-property, and then the question becomes, is it a feedback loop or is it an epiphenomenon? If it's an epiphenomenon, that's the darkest possible scenario, where you're literally a passenger in your own body. You think you've got free will, and actually it's just a bit of a horror story.
Sam Harris's position.
Yeah, Sam Harris's position, although he's got a nice... He hermeneutically, he turns it on its head and he's comfortable with it, but we won't go there. So that's the worst case scenario. I'm going to keep all of these on the boil. And then you've got an option which is analytical idealism.
But let's deal with what you said you find most reasonable.
I can't deny the entanglement between neurology and I can't deny the entanglement between. Okay, well then, which is the prime mover in that feedback? Is it a feedback loop? Let's assume yes.
So I would say, I know this is going to be like a broken record, but these are secondary questions because you believe, you know, you think, you feel that you think, you know that you think. You're able to follow your own train of thought or lead a train of thought.
Yeah.
If you were not able to do any of that means that you wouldn't be able to think. You're just if everything is only physical, right, there's no dualistic system, it's everything only physical, then any product of the physical world, chemical reactions, subatomic reactions, whatever happening, only happen according to the laws of nature. And their products are therefore not something you can control. You can't decide if the sodium atom in your brain is going to come through the voltage-gated tunnel or not. It's going to happen according to the laws of the system that's set up.
Yeah.
And therefore the thoughts that are generated are also therefore outside of your control. And therefore you're in that position of Sam Harris where you think you're thinking, but actually you're
but I'm a passenger, I'm an epiphenomenon.
Absolutely. You're just experiencing the thoughts.
Yeah.
So your ability to reason and come to a conclusion while you're here and live in the world and have moralistic ideas or ethical ideas is just a big hoax.
Yeah, very depressing.
So
I can't discount it,
but
unfortunately, but I hope
you
it's
can
okay.
discount it.
No, I'm not.
That's really how.
Because I'm trying to be really brutally honest with myself, and the first thing I notice is I really don't want to believe that's the case. Okay?
Sure.
I really, really, really don't.
Why not?
But the fact, because it places
that?
me in a profoundly depressing existence, okay? However, I know from experience that just because I really, really don't want to believe something's true, I can't use that as a platform to just chuck it.
Let me give an
I've
example.
got to keep it on the boil as a possibility.
Let me just